for all the craziness of all of this, Trump is an extraordinarily ineffective vehicle for harnessing the discontent and anger towards all of these processes. He did fairly well with it, I would say, just cynically watching him in 2016, but he was an unknown quantity then. And his incompetence to deal with, this unique crisis that we're in right now is, obviously I'm not going to make the same mistake of predicting again that he's gonna lose, but it's very possible that Biden's going to win. And even though the Democratic Party is intellectually, I think it's just completely broken. It doesn't stand for anything anymore except for not being something else. And even that, it doesn't stand for that all that strongly. It could still sputter on for a little while. And what I worry about is that it will succumb to the same institutional pressures that happened at Evergreen and have happened more recently at the New York Times. It's, it doesn't know, because it's not strong in its own identity, it's susceptible to being taken over by zealots. And I don't know how much you would worry about that, but I worry about that a little bit.
Oh, I think it's far worse than that. I think, yeah, this is becoming a theme, I guess. But the Democratic Party stands for nothing because it has become an influence peddling racket, as the Republican Party is. And as such, the only thing it does is protect its access to power. And what has happened is it has lost its argument for being awarded that power by voters. And what it is now going to do is it is going to rally a constituency by giving it something real. But
Mm-hmm.
what it's giving it is power over other citizens. In other words, and this is why I say it is George Bridges, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Biden is the George Bridges play, because what it's going to do is it's going to empower this counter-revolution that is now marching in our streets and marching in every single institution. It is going to empower them to keep them from going after the real culprits. So, the anger in the streets is about something real. Americans have been frozen out of a large fraction of the well-being that they've created. And in an effort to stave off the French Revolution yet one more election cycle, the people with the pitchforks and the torches are going to be awarded rights to extract stuff from other citizens. And that is I just don't even see how that will be avoided. It's not that the zealots will take over the Democratic Party. It's that the Democratic Party will foolishly empower them, will cynically empower them in order to win this election and potentially future ones. And that will be the final straw.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I remember in 2016 watching, when Bernie was first becoming a thing, and it was surprising to see how well he was. I guess it wasn't surprising, because the Democrats their message is just so unsuccessful when they try to present it, unvarnished in front of audiences. It's just amazing the lack of response they get. So Bernie starts doing well, and one of the first things that starts happening is that the Clinton campaign starts dusting off the language of campus intersectionality to go after the Sanders movement, which I thought was fascinating because I had watched Hillary do exactly the opposite in 2008 when Barack Obama was the candidate. She was basically trying to run as George Wallace in places like Pennsylvania. Now they figured, because this is how they're wired, that, well, let's just go for whatever cynically will get us through the night. Bernie is vulnerable. We'll call him a cis white man. We'll get all of our aides to whisper in the ears of journalists at night. Hillary publicly says things like, yes, if we broke up the banks tomorrow, would that end racism? Which was an extraordinarily effective line because Bernie didn't know how to answer that for some reason. He was afraid of the connotation of answering that charge, and he backed off from it, and that became successful. And I think that's the seed. That was the seed of what you're talking about, where the trade for the Democrats became, all right. So to stop us from having to deal with offending all of our donors in the health insurance industry, in the military industrial complex, on Wall Street. I mean, this is our power base, right? And they transparently, if you talk to people in the party, they transparently see their job as finding the middle ground between getting elected and making sure that the donors are happy. And their donors are, not people, they're these big institutions. So they saw that the way forward was to start adopting the language of wokeness. I don't think at any level they ever believed it in any meaningful way. But they did it again this year, even, with Bernie again. But I think you're right. I think what they're going to end up doing is, rather than go forward with Medicare for all or any other kind of serious structural reform or breaking up the banks on Wall Street or any of the other things that people have been asking for, they are going to give them something. I think they're going to give them this institutional revolution that some people are asking for, which conveniently will exclude some of their biggest donors from impact for a while, and I think that's a good analysis that you have of the situation. It troubles me that we don't see that in the press very much when they're talking about what the Democrats are doing with this language. Why is Nancy Pelosi, dressing in kente cloth scarves, and they're participating and they're talking about knocking down all these statues, where only a few months ago they were denouncing Sanders on patriotic grounds as being a Russian agent. Like, they don't see the contradiction there. It's just, it's an odd thing. Yeah.
It's odd. It again reminds me of those people walking out to look at the fish flopping on the sea
right,
floor.
Yes, exactly. Well, that perfectly describes the Democrats in like a million ways.
In a million ways. Right, exactly. Yeah. And, of course, in 2020, that just puts us in such an amazing bind, because nothing stands between us and this revolution getting its every wish, which, I guess on the bright side, the fairy tales it's talking about aren't going to function. So it's not going to be long-term successful, but it can wreck everything in the process. And, not only are Americans depending on all of the things it's going to wreck, but the world is depending on us to keep it together. Because if we don't, look what we're doing to the international picture.